Hello, Professor Perez. My name is Will Orenshaw. I'm in your History 140 class, here to do my final project on Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. I was going to try to do it through Zoom, but I kept getting this error, so I decided to use NVIDIA screen capture to get the presentation and my commentary. I'm going to upload it to YouTube and turn it in from there. So the quick overview on The Jungle. It was written by American author Upton Sinclair. It was published on February 26th, 1902, and has since been translated into over 17 languages. In its first year there in 1902, it sold over 100,000 copies, become an instant success, and has been cited alongside novels that have changed our country and shook our society to the very core, alongside works like Uncle Tom's Cabin. Yeah. So for a quick overview of the events, the extended Rudkus family has immigrated to Chicago from Lithuania. There are 10 members of this group, with the young man Jurgis being our protagonist. Upon landing in Chicago, he gets a job at the Durham Meat Packing Company. His coworker, and I do apologize for my Eastern European pronunciations. They're certainly not going to be perfect, but I will do my best. His coworker Timosius explains how the system works and how, despite Jurgis's expectations, hard work will not allow you to rise through the ranks. This is a recurring theme throughout the book. Jurgis basically, his catchphrase basically is, I'll just work harder to make more money. And throughout the events of the book, this is shown to not only be impossible, but the system is actually actively designed to prevent things like that from happening. So the group settles in and buys a house, but they're unaware of a huge amount of hidden fees. After a kindly neighbor explains to them what interest is, they quickly fall into debt that is insurmountable. Those hidden fees are stuff like interest, insurance, so on and so forth. Jurgis's father, Antanas, reveals that his job at the meatpacking company requires him to dump chemical cleaner into the vats of meat. It's never specified what his job is, but it appears to be some sort of custodial floor cleaning, where he uses these heavy-duty chemicals to scrub the floors, and they're supposed to drain through grates, probably into the sewer system, but eventually, over time, the grates get clogged up, and he's supposed to clean them and just dump all of that gross stuff into the vats of meat to sort of top off the product. Jurgis and Ona get married on November 23rd, 1899, as a sort of brief respite from the harsh reality they're living in. It's a moment of levity and happiness. But soon winter comes, posing great risk to the family. Jurgis's father dies from what I believe to be complications of chemical exposure. He was coughing up blood, and it's stated that the chemicals he was using to clean the floors entirely ate through the soles of new boots, which is just horrific. Sometime later, Jurgis joins a union and begins trying to learn English as a way to get ahead and not be swindled again. Ona's cousin Marija, another member of the group, is let go from the, I wrote canning factory, but I believe it's a sewing factory. After she reports wage fraud multiple times, but realizes that no matter how far up the ladder she goes, nothing has changed. That's sort of the extent of the character of Marija. She continuously knows that she's been cheated out of some of the money she's owed, and continues to take it up with the higher-ups in the company she's working with, and continually gets either flat out denied or her wages are garnished even more, till eventually she's let go. Sometime later, Ona goes into labor and gives birth to a healthy baby boy. This is another moment of levity and happiness for this family that has, frankly, only begun to suffer. Not soon after, Jurgis suffers a foot injury and is forced to miss nearly 2 months of work while recovering, after which he can't get his job at the slaughterhouse back. The only work he could find is in the dreaded fertilizer plant. It's another misspelling there, but Ona attends a socialist rally and finds it quite interesting. This is a sort of the first glimpse into what Upton Sinclair was really pushing with this novel, that socialism is greater than capitalism, and it takes care of the little guy and the worker and those who would be used and chewed up and spit out by the system. It's discovered that Oda's work is a front for her work is a front for a prostitution ring where the seamstresses are, if not forced, then certainly coerced into sleeping with the boss and the other men that come calling. And when Jurgis discovers this, he attacks her boss and is sent to prison. He spends a depressing Christmas in jail, and when his trial finally arrives, the judge sides with the wealthy and influential boss, and he is put into even further debt. Marija loses her second job after injuring her hand, and the next time we see her, she will be forced to be working in a brothel. After returning from prison, Jurgis finds out that his family was evicted from the house they had fought and saved so desperately to retain, and they are forced to go back to the boarding house they stayed in their first few weeks in America. Sometime later, Ona miscarries the couple's second child, and there is a frankly heartbreaking scene of Ona and Jurgis talking about. Ona especially says, I'm glad that this miscarriage happened because I didn't want this child to be born into the situation they're in, and that just broke my heart. Jurgis runs into his old friend Timosius, back from the first job again, who explains that Jurgis has been having such a hard time finding work after getting out of prison because he's likely been blacklisted from any job in all of Packingtown. This shows again the extent of power that the boss that he attacked really has over the entire city, basically. After that, Jurgis is forced to go into Chicago proper to look for work, and he spends a few days, asking for work in every place that he goes into, as well as begging on the street. He runs into Marija, who now works in a brothel. Eventually, he stumbles into a socialist rally and is really inspired by the message they say, and really puts his hopes in socialism as a way to both lift him and his family out of the poverty they've experienced. And Jurgis' struggle finally begins to turn around as he's given work at a socialist-owned hotel, cleaning and tidying up and basically getting honest work and honest pay. And the final scene of the novel is really, really powerful, actually, which is Jurgis meeting a writer who introduces himself as Upton Sinclair and asks Jurgis to tell him his story so he can put it into publication and eventually into a novel. So one of the major themes of this book is actually summed up quite well by a great quote from Upton Sinclair. It says, "I aimed for the public's heart and I hit it in the stomach." His main goal with releasing The Jungle was to bring to light the plight of the poor and the immigrants and those people that are being used and abused by the system. But in reality, it was made famous and spread throughout the entire country because of the horrors it showed of the industrialized meatpacking industry. The chemical cleaners being dumped into the food, and we've all heard the horror stories of workers getting fingers cut off and the fingers just being swept into the meat to, like I said, top off the product. The main sort of enduring theme throughout the whole middle and last act of the novel were Upton Sinclair trumpeting socialism as a way to combat the greed of capitalism that had hurt so many people for so long. That's sort of the enduring lesson. Jurgis and Ona both find hope and solace in the idea of a socialist society where the poor and the workers are powerful and taken care of and can command some respect and are not put through hell, so a small number of powerful, wealthy people can become even more powerful and wealthy through very little work. The major influences of The Jungle in the years since its publication have been the Meat Inspection Act of 1906, the Pure Food and Drug Act, which eventually set the stage for the Department of, or the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and its influence on muckraking. I can never tell if it's pronounced muckraking or muckracking. I think muckraking, muckraking journalism. So the Meat Inspection Act of 1906 was due almost entirely by the public outrage that the jungle portrayed, and the way that tainted foods can be put out to the world. The Pure Food and Drug Act was sort of an extension of this. Both of these were either put into law by Teddy Roosevelt or something that he very much championed. And it signaled a turn from the industrialized late 19th century to the early 20th century that really put in place protections for the consumer. And muckraking, of course, was according to the Cambridge Dictionary, it is the activity, especially by newspapers and reporters, of trying to find out unpleasant information about people or organizations in order to make it public. This was done quite well by the jungle in the food and meatpacking industry as a way to sort of bring to light the issues I talked about earlier and put government oversight in the in a position to change things and prevent those from happening again. The modern day, we still see to this day protections that are in place that the jungle was either directly responsible or heavily influential in getting implemented. Like I said earlier, the creation of the FDA and the meatpacking industry were both, if not done entirely because of the jungle, were either heavily influenced by the public outrage the jungle created. But to this day, the very, very wealthy still get away with nearly everything. You see the boss that had Jurgis imprisoned, even though he did commit assault, pretty much got away with everything. He ran prostitution rings, which were, of course, illegal in the United States at that time, but because of the wealth and power he had, no one touched him. And yeah, to this day, the very, very wealthy still get away with just a slap on the wrist, if that. There are very few direct correlations between the events of the jungle and the modern day working America. The closest I could think of were warehouse jobs with mega corporations like Amazon being, very, very damaging to both physical and mental health of the workers who work there. And it, just goes to show that capitalism marches on, and even to this day, we still have these protections in place for workers, and guaranteed sick pay and other protections. While they are there, there's still a lot of work to be done to maintain the physical and mental health and basically the dignity of the people working in those jobs. And those are my bibliographies. So that is my presentation. Thank you.